Hi, Andrew from SACS. This video is video number 5 in our 12 video sequence on neurodiversity, and we're asking the question of whether you're ready for neurodiversity. So we're going to encourage you to hire people who are neurodiverse. We think that's a talent opportunity, and we also think that diversity of its very nature is good for business. There is good, strong research evidence, but there are things that you need to do to prepare in order to be successful. So firstly, there's a moral imperative. A diverse workforce is rooted in the ideals of fairness and social justice, but there's a very significant ethical question. Now let me tell you what I mean by the ethical question. The ethical question is, are you set up to ensure the well-being and productivity of the neurodiverse person who's coming into your workforce? And are you set up to ensure the well-being and the productivity of that person's fellow staff and of the leaders who will lead that person? Here are some tips about how to do that. Firstly, do you have the will to recruit people who are neurodiverse? So that needs a discussion and a resolution at a senior staff level and with the workforce. Secondly, do you have a contemporary policy framework to support it? Now, what I mean by that is that if you hire people with neurodiversity, we believe that you should have a policy that deals with this issue. And later on in this sequence of videos, we'll be talking about necessary accommodations for people with neurodiversity. So if you simply take people who are neurodiverse and plonk them into the existing jobs as they are right now, then there may be some challenges in that. A policy framework and things like necessary accommodations are important to have thought about before you start hiring people with neurodiversity. Do you have a leadership team able to lead neurodiverse employees? I mean, if you've got a leader who has never encountered people with, let's say, autism spectrum disorder, there will be some surprises for that person. It may well be a good developmental and successful relationship, but they will certainly experience things that they've never experienced before if they haven't had this contact in the past. So there are things that should be done to teach people how to manage this kind of a situation, both from a skills point of view, but also from an expectations point of view. We also deal with that later in this video sequence. Do you have an organisational climate of inclusion? An organisational climate of inclusion is really the tendency to be welcoming of people who are different from me. Now, we know that that varies from team to team within the one organisation, but also from organisation to organisation. I think it's important to understand where your workforce is in respect of that and to do some work on this before you start undertaking in earnest the process of diversifying your workforce. And do you have high quality human resources techniques such as job definition, performance development, succession planning, etc.? And so later on in this sequence of videos, we do talk about this. What are the things that you need to do in order to ensure that people with neurodiversity, that their jobs are defined in an effective way and that they are managed effectively from a coaching, guidance, leadership and performance development point of view? And so the real test is whether you can support the well-being of the employee and their productivity. Now, you know that productivity and well-being are really intertwined. So if I'm working in a job where I'm succeeding, my probability of having high levels of well-being is much higher. On the other hand, if I have high levels of well-being, well, not surprisingly, that correlates with productivity. And so the two are very heavily intertwined. You hire somebody with neurodiversity, you want to make sure that you are looking after their well-being, but also you're giving them the best possible probability of succeeding. And that, of course, has an impact on what's on the rest of this slide, which is the well-being and productivity of other people. Now, the very next video in this sequence is about diversity, climate, and personal inclusiveness. And that's where we talk about the characteristic of certain workforces being welcoming of people who are diverse and maybe other workforces not so much. If you find this content helpful, then like and subscribe.